Welcome back to the Grace-Filled Classroom. I'm Keisha, and I'm so glad you're here. Today's episode is extra special because I just returned from the Vault Conference in Orlando with my family, a powerful multi-speaker leadership event hosted by Patrick Bet-David that focuses on entrepreneurship, personal growth, and influencing others with integrity and impact. Having my husband and daughter with me gave me such a unique perspective as a learner, a mom, and a teacher. We had the incredible opportunity to hear from both Tony Robbins and Patrick Bet-David, and I couldn't help but listen through the lens of a teacher, a learning styles enthusiast, and a homeschool mom. Tony Robbins reminded us that low energy equals low performance. That influence comes from knowing what already influences people, and that engagement equals understanding. He didn't just say those things, he definitely modeled them, using all 4 learning styles in his presentation. Patrick Bet-David, one of the best storytellers I have ever heard, gave us a workbook, visuals, and discussion prompts. But he missed one learning style, and I saw how that impacted not only me and my daughter, but also the audience around us. So today, we're going to unpack what those 2 powerhouse leaders taught me about learning styles, engagement, and how it all connects back to the way we teach, lead, and parent with grace. Before we dive in, I'd love to invite you to like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes of the Grace-Filled Classroom. It's such an encouragement, and it helps more people find these conversations. When Tony Robbins took the stage, the first thing that struck me was his energy. Even before he opened his mouth, the lights were moving, the music was loud, and the whole room was on its feet clapping. The atmosphere was truly electric, and you could feel your energy shift just by being there. He said something that has really stayed with me. Low energy equals low performance. And you know what? He's right. If our students or even we as teachers show up with low energy, the performance and the learning will reflect that. He also reminded us that to influence someone, you have to know what already influences them. That hit me as both a mom and a teacher. With our kids and our students, if we don't know what motivates them, what lights them up, it's going to be really hard to connect and help them grow. And then he said, engagement equals understanding. I could have jumped out of my chair right there, and honestly, I almost did. Because that is exactly what I've been talking about with learning styles. When we engage learners in a way that makes sense to them, understanding naturally follows. But here's what I loved most. Tony didn't just talk about these ideas. He actually modeled them in how he spoke. He hit all 4 learning styles beautifully. For visual learners, he gave slides with key points. Auditory learners had his speaking voice, the way he told stories, and the way he varied his tone kept us listening, that's for sure. And we had a workbook from Patrick Bet-David that we could use during his presentation to take notes in, reflect, and capture ideas. And he had those kinesthetic learners moving. He had us up, moving, clapping, shaking out our bodies, and even shouting affirmations. And at one point, my daughter was laughing and re-engaging just because he made the crowd move. And I noticed the people around us perk up too.
I loved when he had us moving. I felt like I could focus better.
But before Tony even came on stage, there was one detail I'll never forget. PBD had the conference room temperature set to 60 degrees. He even told us to dress warmer because he likes it cooler, to keep people's attention, and because he knew Tony would have us moving, and boy did he. That tiny environmental detail says so much about how he thinks about engagement. And the result? You didn't just sit there and absorb. You were fully engaged. And because you were engaged, you actually understood and remembered it. Now that's the power of using all the learning styles. Now Patrick Bet-David, or PBD as many call him, is an incredible storyteller. Truly, he could hold the attention of thousands with the way he weaves his own story into lessons. And that in itself is such a gift. He also thought about multiple learning styles. He gave us a workbook, which was amazing for reading and writing learners. He had slides to support the visuals, and he built in moments for us to talk with the people sitting around us, which really helped auditory learners process the information. Still, here's what was missing. There wasn't any kinesthetic learning built into PBD's session. And I'll be honest, after about an hour, my daughter leaned over and whispered, "Mom, I can't sit still anymore." And honestly, I felt the same way. We were both more focused on staying in our seats than on the actual message. And when I looked around, I realized we weren't the only ones. People were shifting in their chairs, checking their watches, honestly zoning out a little. Classic signs that when kinesthetic learners don't get to move, their energy goes towards managing their bodies instead of absorbing the content. That experience reminded me just how critical it is to include every learning style. You can be one of the best communicators in the world, and PBD absolutely is. But if even one modality is missing, you risk losing part of your audience. And as I was sitting there, I couldn't help but think, what if I had been coaching him beforehand, or even whispering reminders during his talk? What if I could have helped him weave in those kinesthetic strategies? His message was already powerful, don't get me wrong, but imagine how much more effective it could have been. His reach could have been expanded even further, connecting with the learners who were struggling to stay engaged simply because their bodies needed movement. Now, something else PBD mentioned really caught my interest. He talked about wanting to create his own school one day, and my heart just leapt. Because imagine, if that school was built on a foundation of multimodal teaching where every child's strengths and learning styles were honored, that is a school I could get behind. In fact, that's the kind of dream I would love to help launch, because it would completely transform how kids experience learning. That specific moment reminded me that the best communicators don't just share their story, they adapt their message so every person in the room has an equal chance to absorb it. And that's the power of teaching with all the learning styles in mind. So why am I even sharing all of this with you? Well, because it matters. Not just at conferences, but in our classrooms, our homes, and our professional development. Adults need this. If we need variety to stay engaged, just imagine how much more our kids do. Think about that kinesthetic learner in your classroom who's asked to sit still for 45 minutes straight. Their brain isn't on the content anymore. It's on not moving. They're using all their energy to control their body. And what gets lost? The learning. This is why I keep saying one size fits all does not work. Not in sales, not in leadership, not in the classroom. We have to design learning experiences that honor the way God wired people differently. This has been on my heart so much lately because I actually have my first coaching opportunity coming up in North Carolina. I'll be working with teachers at an academy to help them implement multimodal teaching strategies in their classroom. And what I saw at the Vault only confirmed for me how essential this work really is. And that brings me to faith. Romans 12:6 tells us, "We have different gifts according to the grace given to each of us." What struck me as I reflected on the weekend is how intentional God is and how He created us. Even in a crowd of thousands, you could see it. Some people lit up with the stories. Others were glued to their notebooks. Others only perked up when they got to move or talk. None of that is accidental. God did not create cookie-cutter learners. He made each of us unique, with our own strengths, styles, and ways of engaging. And honoring those differences is one way that we can reflect His creativity and His grace. When we as educators, parents, and leaders build environments that let all learners thrive, we're not just helping them succeed academically. We are honoring the way God designed them. So, what do we do with all of this? Let me give you some practical ways to bring this into your teaching, parenting, or leadership this week. For teachers, please rotate through learning modalities every 15 to 20 minutes. Use visuals, add movement, include discussion, and always give some kind of written or note-taking option. Pair those visuals with discussion so students are processing in more than one way. And please build in some simple movement. Even a stand and share with a partner or a quick gallery walk can truly reset the brain. And for parents, pay attention to how your child engages best. Do they light up when they can draw while listening? Do they retain more when they move? Adapt homework time. Let them use flashcards while bouncing on a ball, or doodle while reading aloud. Small changes can make a big difference. And for leaders and adults, when you're leading professional development or a meeting, design it with slides, stories, notes, and movement. Remember, adults are just as diverse in their learning as kids are. Model the kind of variety you want teachers to bring back to their classrooms. Because at the end of the day, whether you're on a conference stage like Tony Robbins or Patrick Bet-David, or standing in a classroom or leading your own children at home, the truth remains. Engagement equals understanding. So friends, I really hope today's episode encouraged you to think about engagement in a new way. Even world-class speakers can lose their audience when they miss a learning style. So how much more important is it for us as educators, parents, and leaders to bring energy, variety, and intentionality into how we teach and coach? And here's this week's reflection question for you. Which learning style do you tend to overlook in your teaching, parenting, or leadership, and how could you add it in this week? I'd love to hear your thoughts and your stories. Send me a message, comment below, email me, tag me on social media. I may even feature your example in a future episode. And don't miss next week because I'll be sharing how these lessons are shaping my new journey into coaching, helping adults learn how to coach other adults and coach more effectively in the classroom. And if this episode encouraged you, please take a moment to like, follow, or subscribe. It really helps spread the word and keep this community growing. Even better, share it with a friend, a teacher, or a leader in your life who could use this kind of encouragement and input. You never know how it might spark change for them too. Thanks for listening, friend. May God guide you with wisdom and fill your days with peace. I'll see you next time in the Grace-Filled Classroom.